how is it that you blessed me with this passion, this vision, and it's hurting this much to keep it? Like this, I was going through the season of trademark issues and losing things. And it's like, Lord, I'm losing more than I'm gaining. Welcome to Be Real with Sarah, where the bee may sting and the real never dies. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Be Real with Sarah, where the bee may sting, but the real never dies. Y'all, we are in for a treat. And I'm pretty much giving this episode title away, and it says Texas. All right. So for those that live in Texas or from Texas, I definitely think that hopefully you will connect with me. So I wanted to just have a transparent conversation of what transition really looks like, especially for an entrepreneur, for a woman of faith, woman of God, someone that literally walks this journey. Not something that I heard, not something that I hear about, but something that I'm actually walking in. And we may have an emotional journey. This may be not just emotional journey for you, but it's probably going to be definitely emotional journey for me. And my goal with this episode is to talk to the young man and the young woman that is in that season of transition. And you're feeling like, is this life? Is this, am I going to always be struggling? Am I going to always be going through all these emotions? And especially for the person that feels like the well has ran dry. That's a real thing where something sometimes just completely dries up. The brook dries up and you are wondering, what are your next steps? And so we're going to be talking about just Sarah's journey and I'm going to be real with y'all, of how I probably delayed myself or was just disobedient. Just disobedient. And a lot of times we get so stuck in our heads where we cannot see how something is going to happen. We can't see past the next hour. And God is asking us to do something, but there's nothing in place. As from what we can see, the financial is not there. The people are not there. The resources are not there. Your mind is not there. And so we're going to talk about that journey today. So if you guys are not familiar with me, the job that I do every day is that I run an amazing agency called Be the Buzz Agency. So I am the senior lead founder, senior publicist, strategist of that agency. So we've been doing this for 10 years, literally just out here, either bootstrapping it, kind of just trying to figure it out. But God has also given me the opportunity to work with amazing brands, organizations, companies, entrepreneurs, individuals to help really get the buzz on their brand, and no pun intended. But seriously, I've really walked this journey out with some amazing people. However, what happened was that, I went into full-time entrepreneurship. And so if you are an entrepreneur, you understand that whatever you are to fish, that's what you get. So if you going out and you like, this month, you can, and let's back up. The saying that you could start one day with $0, a negative account, and then be up 10K, that's a real thing. But then that also just talks about the sovereignty of God, right? But you're looking at a person that, of course, started the agency in Mobile, Alabama. I'm from Mobile. Okay. Shout out to my 251 people. But I grew. I really started Be the Buzz PR at the time in Atlanta, Georgia. And wherever you start, have a significant point in your journey. And that was Atlanta, Georgia. And Atlanta always has a very special place in my heart, baby. There is no bad talking over here about Atlanta, because Atlanta really was that area, was that city that really shaped me, gave me the opportunities. When people say that is that the place to really launch, it is, and it can be. And I don't even want to say depending on what you do. There's so many opportunities, whether it's a scam or whether it's the real thing. It's an opportunity for you to get your feet wet out there. Okay. And that's just keeping it all the way real. And so what I really love about my journey there was that I got the opportunity, and also I was super young. And so when you are in your 20s and you're young and you're vibrant, you are just doing any and everything. Like, I'm a risk taker already, but when you are like even younger, you're just doing any and everything. Um, and so I got my start there. I got my first clients there. I did all my red carpets. I did all my events there. We did quite a bit of projects there. So I built the foundation there. And so sitting back and really thinking about, when I made the transition in 2025, I'm sure the comments was, why would you uproot yourself from a place that you had been there for 8 years, that you had grown, that you established yourself as a professional, that you built connections, relations, like you grew up there. Why would you go and move 12 hours away? Is what I'm always really recollecting in my mind. Like, what would you do there, girl? Like, why? And the reason being is that sometimes you all, as an entrepreneur, you are always set up to think about what's next. If you are not thinking about what's next as a business owner, as a leader, then you're really not a business owner or a leader, because a leader foreshadows. A leader is supposed to forecast, and a leader is supposed to really be a visionary. And a visionary is someone that literally sees past where they are. That's why we have so many dreams and passions and goals. But I couldn't see it. I thought Atlanta was the favorite place, right? But then over time, one thing I liked about how God has, allowed our agency to grow is that our primary client base wasn't always in Atlanta. It was always outside of Atlanta. We still were able to obviously be successful in Atlanta, but it wasn't just Atlanta. And so what I realized is that even in the industry of the public relations business, marketing, branding, is that you cannot just focus. You can have a niche, you can have a particular industry you like to work in, but there's such a broader picture when you are working in that particular field. And so I was able to just really tap into different markets, learn different culture. See, I'll be missing the words. Y'all get what I'm saying. But I was able to tap into and different demographics and different industries. And so I was able to relate to them. But I never thought that I would actually be moving, or I would just say, oh my God, I love this city. I would do this, blah, blah, whatever. But God started to take me through seasons in business, and seasons and seasons and seasons. And baby, you only tap into a certain level of faith if you say you a business owner. I don't care what nobody's saying. You just tap into a certain level of faith. And when they talk about ebbs and flows in business, the highs and lows in business, it's a real thing. And so in that season, or in those seasons, we started to see drastic shifts, right? And when you are the CEO, you are the leader. There are sometimes in your life or in your business that God will call us to scale. God will call us to bring team, because I'm a true believer that you cannot do life alone. So for all my no do friends, yeah, God will break that up in a heartbeat, because you truly cannot go to any level without someone. We are actually, our DNA as individuals is built on community. It's built on relationships. And so there was a time in my life, there was a time in my business where I was doing everything by myself. You can call it bootstrapping, you can call it just trying to hustle and bustle. I love Atlanta, but Atlanta is that city where you go hustle. Okay. You won't think about all the things and all the things and all the things, whatever you can do to get a little dollar, a little change. So child, I have been literally a bus driver, a school teacher, just doing retail, all the things, and still trying to run the business. But when I went into full-time entrepreneurship, God was opening the door for new contracts and new opportunities. And so we started to see an increase in business. And so as things began to increase, I started to take on all these projects, started to do all this stuff by myself. And then I realized, I'm like, you are so young, you're not even 30. You getting yourself in the hospital, you get stressed out, you have anxiety attacks, you having panic attacks, all the things. And I said, I've literally heard God say, it is time to rebrand, and it's time to, go into agency mode. And so agency mode is taking yourself from being the solopreneur, maybe it's, for some people, the freelancer, to more of a collaborative working environment, which is obviously bringing on contractors, employees, etc. So we got to a point where we were just growing. We were just growing. We were just growing. We were just growing. We started adding on contractors. We rebranded. We did a brand facelift. This was obviously around the time of the pandemic, and we were just growing. So everybody remember that time of that 2020 to that 2022. That was like we started to see just the emergence of just increased scaling. 6-figure contracts, 6 figure. Like it was a time where it's like you would think like, am I gonna ever get back to that? It was such an ideal time for business. But what I learned in that was that I grew and I built, but I didn't build it in hindsight the way God wanted it or intended it to be. And so I paid for that later. And I paid through that because my heart is so big, right? And so for the visionaries and for the CEOs, for the entrepreneurs, for the leaders, leading with our heart sometimes can cost us, right? And so we lead and God also puts us in a position to bless others. But if we don't consult him and we don't lead on to him, then things just kind of fall down to the wayside. So we started to see shifts, right? We started to see the shifts of increase and we started to see the shift of stagnation and we started to see the shifts of decrease, meaning what the heck is happening? We losing business, we losing relationships, we losing friendships. And so when you see a up and you go up for so much, it's almost like you can become so not humble to where when things begin to look crazy and chaotic, you're like, well, how in the world did I get here? What signs did I miss? And so during that time, I was missing a lot of signs. I was not paying attention. I was leading with my heart. I was leading with friendship. I was leading in just a way that I'm not going to say I was the most proud of, but it also helped me to understand that you sometimes have to, you got to think spiritual, but you got to think practical, but you got to think what's in the best interest of where God is taking this agency, where God is taking this business. So one thing I know about God, some may agree, some may not, but when you don't do it his way, he will tear it down like a toddler tearing down Legos. Okay. He will break it down. All right. And that's just because there was nowhere in the puzzle where he was at the centerpiece. And so I got humble. Your girl got humble. I started to say, okay, the business is going down. And I lost some friendships in that. And so as we go on, it just was some dry months. It was when I look back at these past few years and I see like, how did I make it as a full-time entrepreneur, all the things, business not where it's supposed to be. I don't have the team that I kept, maybe one or two, but I was like, how what's happening? Like, how am I going to sustain this basically, right? If you are, obviously paying your rent, you paying your bills, you got your car note and you trying to still live, you still trying to be young, you're like, well, how are we going to sustain it? So, it was a season where it felt like God was spoon feeding me work. Like, it was just enough, like to the T, to the amount. And it just wasn't sustainable. It was not sustainable. It was highly depressing. Transparently, I can be honest. I'll never forget one month. She's watching this. She would know. I called her to, like, I didn't even have gas in the tank. She cooked dinner. One of my friends cooked dinner for me. She lived like 7-8 minutes from the house. And I was like, I barely had enough to just cover my rent. Barely had enough to just cover, like, I didn't even have the money left over to feed myself. And so it was like it was a repetition of that on and off. It was going up and going down. And so when I look back at those seasons, also, even through God just giving just enough, I also wasn't stewarding the time where he did increase, right? Like if there was a month where I was exceeding all my overhead, I'm over here just bawling, like as if you're not as if you're not an entrepreneur or whatever. And so when I look at it, I'm way more mindful now in my journey of just stewardship. Like there's one thing when God blesses us with something or with an idea, with a dream, and he starts to, sometimes God will give us a preview. And so I was seeing like, okay, God, I'm kind of re-rising up, it ain't where it was. It's not on the agency model where it was, but I'm seeing some projects, we moving along. And so we started to see that. But what I noticed the 2 years prior to 2025 was that it was an ebb and flow. It was the same. I come up, I come down. I mean, it was just consistent. It was just so consistent when I really look back. When I really look at the end of year numbers, I was like, I don't know how I made it. And I got exhausted with that. But I kept trucking. I said, this is how it's supposed to be. I ain't going nowhere. I ain't renewing. I ain't getting another part. I'm staying here. This is my place. This is what's going to happen. Blah, 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 blah. But something in me just felt like this wasn't sustainable. And I would pray and I would cry out to God. I said, how is it that you blessed me with this passion, this vision, and it's hurting this much to keep it? Like this, I was going through the season of trademark issues and losing things. And it's like, Lord, I'm losing more than I'm gaining at this point. Like, my mom will always tell me that it does not feel good to get hurt or hit in the same area. And so even though it's almost as if the business and my vision was a burden. And I'm a person, I give up. I'll be like, I give up. I'm done. I'm gonna cry. And then God will send something. Then I'm back up. I'm back up. I'm excited. So I went through these seasons of ebbs and flows, ebbs and flows, ebbs and flows. This went on for 2 years. Really, probably more than 2 years. Then we go into another season of we going up, we going up, 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 we going up, up, up. And one thing that really bothered me about, and it still is the thing that bothers me, is that God will use us, for those that are service providers, that he will use us to uplift, to grow another business, entrepreneur, individual. And it's like you go home and you lack. Like you, the marriage ain't, kids cutting up, your relationships are like you go home so depleted, but you just feel their cup. You just made them look good. They just excited. And sometimes you go home and they don't even thank you. They don't even, you feel like unappreciated, but then you're like, well, I just got paid, so you start to feel unfulfilled because at some point money not even gonna matter. You just gonna be unfulfilled. And so I'll never forget, and this is leading into my journey of why we are here in Texas, why I surrendered myself. I I can honestly say that I went through this season. I was getting projects. And this was the summer of 2024. Makes me a little emotional thinking about it. I had just left Stellar's. I was on this high, and I really wasn't on necessarily too much of a high because I was struggling. I was still financially struggling. Like I was just not where I needed to be. There was things that I wanted to do I couldn't do. I did not steward when I was supposed to steward, even during that time. I still was making bad decisions. But I started to say, you know what? This ain't working. As in, like, Sarah, you're going to have to go to work. Just thinking about, but then you know what? God will send something else. So I felt like, I'm like, Lord, you playing tic-tac-toe. In the midst of all of this, and I should take a step back, October of 2023, one of my friends, I was going through, again, me talking about ebbs and flows, y'all, financial, all the things. So I had a friend. She's like my sister, very close girlfriend of mine. She randomly sent me a text and she said, I see Dallas for you. So I said, now, I looked at the phone. I was like, girl, you got this all the way messed up. Because Dallas was never my mind. Let me be very, Texas was never my mind. Never my mind. So y'all, I said, okay, this is one time she got that prophecy wrong. Like she is off, okay? We keep going through life. We keep going through 2024. All of 2024, back-to-back words. You moving, regions, transitioning. You need to be here. I see the South, blah, 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 blah. I started to do more projects in this area, Texas. I started to, work with a friend and working with her agency and doing all the things. Like God just started highlighting different things. Still couldn't see. I was disobedient. Kept getting words, prophetic words. This is what's about to happen. You need to prepare yourself. You need to do this. There's abundance on the other side of it. Could not see it. Could not, because at the time, y'all, remind you, your girl is struggling. Your girl is struggling. And the thing is, it was so bad to the point where it was just like, yeah, that would be nice to move, but look at what I've done. Look at what whatever. Kept getting words. And I think the problem with us as believers is that the Bible says he will show us signs and wonders, right? And we just be ignoring them signs. I don't care how you slice or dice it, but we just be ignoring them signs. And I come back from Stellar's, y'all, and I already knew what I did not have. I already knew. I knew what I was facing. After we come back from Stellar's, we deal with the whole like flight issue, all of the things or whatever. And I knew I did not have everything that I needed for my bills, aka my rents. Okay. But I had projects up in the air and I was like, they gonna come through. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna do that. But not only what happened was I got stuck in Vegas for 3 days. I come back from Vegas and I start to get sick. I get COVID. So y'all know when you're sick, you can't hustle, you can't talk, you can't do nothing. And so we go into the first part of the year, the first part of the month, and we're like, okay, what's up? So I go into August and I don't have my rent. I don't have my bills. I don't have all of that. And so a project that I thought was going to go through did not go through. And I was devastated. And the story behind it is, it was a friend that came back into my life. We had not talked for 2 years. And he asked me about a whole nother project. And I was down, y'all, depressed, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? This is day 4 of, y'all know how it is on that fourth day. You got your bills, you got your rent, whatever the case may be. And he called me and I said, I answered his questions, whatever. And he was like, well, what's wrong? You sound down. I was like, well, such and such, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I do have a question for you. I was like, do you still work in property management? And he was like, yeah, I do. And I said, so I started to tell him what I was going through. And y'all, do y'all not know that a person I had talked in 2 years, not to tell me what their friend, just life took us a different path. He thought of me enough for another project that actually eventually did not go through and he was the one that walked me down this process. And so what I mean by process, I mean by he had went through a season of eviction and all the things. And I was going through that process. And I'll never forget August of 2024, where it was my month of eviction, worried about, meaning when you are, obviously, as you guys know, when you're late, you have a time frame, And it wasn't nothing coming in. It was like God put everything on ice. Like it was nothing coming in. It wasn't that I wasn't working, but I was doing like, little side project, but it wasn't enough. One thing about y'all know, when you get behind, you get behind. And y'all, I went through all of this and I finally, I have my court date or whatever. I ain't nothing still coming in. I get up, friends help me get, like, oh, this is part-time here. So I get this part-time job and I'm still working this contract project. And again, it's not enough to do a catch up, right? So I had to go all the way to the whole court thing. Go to the court thing, this organization in Atlanta. They gave me my approval. They said, it was a whole story with that, as in I couldn't get through. And one thing about a publicist, I'm a researcher, I'm gonna get to where I got to get to. And I just kept pushing. Like I was going through a season where every day my main objective was to try to see how could I get help. Like how out of all the times, y'all, I said, how can I get help? How can I get out of this? And it was finally only one organization that helped me and helped me get back on track. And then projects started coming, so I was able to kind of like catch up. But then the problem was that this organization, based off their funding and everything, it was taking forever to get the money. So I was going through the season of back and forth with my apartment. They wasn't working with me. They wasn't like I was just in a middle of just waiting. I was in waiting. I was waiting on just for God to move. But it's like I had gotten approval. I had got the assistance. God was sending me some work, but the assistance to help me to catch up was it was like it was delayed. Like it was coming, but we didn't have a definitive date. Then I was in a process where they wasn't working with me. So I go through this whole season, y'all, and God started to bless real quick, real quick, real quick. I got a contract. I got hired on the first. And then I started working. I started working. And after going through that whole season of eviction and calling the marshal's office, like, "Am I on the list?" Like, what's going on? What's going on? And how God accelerated, how he worked on that, how this organization helps me get back on my feet, and how then God sends stuff and he starts. I had lost all my fight. I had lost all my fights. And I said, I personally give up. Like, I cannot do this. Fast forward, it's my mom's birthday. I'm thinking of like, well, how can I do something for her 70th birthday? I get a text message from a cousin. I'm having a party, blah, blah, December. And I was like, you know what? That's the same day of my mom's birthday. Maybe I'm saying something for her birthday, right? Out there. We do that, whoop-de-doo, blah, blah, blah. So mom tells me, I leave in a hotel room. I get back in the hotel room. And I knew I had a desire to move somewhere, but it wasn't Texas. I was thinking of like a whole nother area. And she was like, I was looking out over the city and I heard God say, Dallas. And I said, okay. I said, you heard that? And I said, now keep in mind, y'all, every month, almost every month, every quarter in 2024, since October 2023, I kept getting prophetic words about Texas and moving in that region. And so I fast forward and I tell one of my best friends, I said, I think I'm going to move to Texas in 2025. Like, I'm going to put that on my wish list. And I kept hearing God. I didn't see how he was going to do it. And I kept hearing God saying, you need to let this go. Like, you need to move on. You're not going to resign your lease. You're not going to do that. And I look back over my journey and I look back at so many times where I ignored God. I doubted him. I didn't trust him. I didn't trust that he could do it, to be frank with you. And to a year later, right? Over a year later, to see that God took a season of eviction. And when I say eviction, did not get evicted, but I went through this season of like, my back was against the wall and I was about to lose it all, lose everything, to a season of saying yes, to moving, to overflow. So when I get here and I see it and I wear my shirt and I'm like, it's Texas down, Texas down, Texas down. And I'm in I'm in the season of the yes, right? I'm in the season like, okay, God, I put my hands out. I'm not, I'm going to trust you. And the moment I did that, the moment God started, like, he just drastically moved in my life. Just drastically. Work was just working. And the moment I said yes, the moment I surrendered, the moment I said, I'm going to go, I'm going to obey you. I don't know what's over there, but I'm going to do it, because it's like my back was so much against the wall, y'all, to where I said, I don't have a choice, right? I would rather obey God and move and travel and go where he called me to go to than just to stay. And I think the worst thing about it was that I wanted to stay. I wanted it so bad to just be comfortable that I was almost like, you willing to stay here? You willing to just disobey God and continue to be in a place where the brook is completely dried up, than to go where God is telling you to go? And there's so many of us that's willing to do that, to just say, no, it's comfortable over here. But a lot of time, comfortability causes us to lose so much more. And so one thing I will say is that he's like, well, why Dallas? Why Texas and this and that? I tell people all the time, it's because God told me to do that. It's God had been saying for like 2 years, this is not your last. This is not your final stop. And so what may not make sense to anyone makes sense to me because of the season that I went through. The lack, the worry, the stress, the financial disparities, and all of the things. And, it's humbling to say, right, as what looks like a successful business owner, but I'll never sit here and say that it's always been good. I'll never, will say that I didn't go with that. I couldn't feed myself. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. And the moment I started to say yes to God, the moment I started to stop disobeying God and stop giving myself anxiety, the moment God really increased in my life. So when I sit here and I think about and I look at, what God has done in 365 days and I see like, Lord, you gave me a brand new place. I'm in a brand new state. I have a brand new car and I have brand new relationships. It just literally is a testament to what God will do if you would just move and you would just be obedient. And so that's my truth. That's what happened. And I tell people that, you see me in one season, but you don't know the suffering, the silence, the cries, the tears, the rat races of me just fighting because I wanted to be comfortable, because I just didn't want to move. I thought it was better on one side. And I miss it, right? There's a place in my heart where I'm like, do I miss it? I do miss it. I miss my friends, I miss, what's familiar, but I'm so excited on the other side. So as of right now, we are here in Texas. We are here to stay. And my goal and my dream, my passion is just for anyone to take that story and to know to keep going and that obedience is absolutely better than sacrifice. All right. That's Y'all gotta just tune into the next episode because we're gonna keep talking about journeys and all the things. So make sure that you continue to be real, okay? Spread the honey and be you.